will there. Mad things this weekend, really. Liverpool doing double sessions on Saturday and then playing another behind closed doors game. I would say at the moment the doors are getting closed a lot.
Yeah.
The most I remember.
Well, you say this. I went to see Michael Beale a couple of weeks ago. We were chatting about it, and I said it feels like there's more games. And he said, to be honest, people are just talking about them more.
Really?
Yeah. He said we've always played a lot of friendlies. We've always talked about behind closed, but people are talking about them more. People are reporting on them. He said the teams they're playing, like they played a Qatar 11 a few weeks ago. They beat them 6-0. And the Qatar national press covered it. You know, the fact that this team got over to play Liverpool. He said we're just not bothered, but you know, it's a big deal for them coming over to play Liverpool. So they sort of covered it, and so it gets a big thing. Same as Liverpool went down to Brentford a couple of weeks ago as well. Liverpool didn't mention it at all, but Brentford, they played at Griffin Park, which is Brentford's ground. So Brentford are like, oh, Liverpool are coming to town, you know, these young lads and stuff, so they make a big deal of it. And then also, you know, there's nothing to talk about. It's an international weekend, and so people like us talk about it. The Echo have done a feature on it and stuff like that, and you try and look to interesting things. So I think we're just talking about them more.
I got the impression the Echo might have been the other side of the closed doors.
Well, Andy Kelly's done a report, so unless he's just tapped someone up, which is possible. Andy Whispering Kelly has got.
You can have a word. You know, you're friendly with Michael Beale, dropped his name off for 60 seconds of this video. You know what I mean?
I know I'm saying doing every game this year.
But adding behind closed doors games.
Behind closed doors, I think we've just bought a house, me and my missus, who we just talked about that off here. So, you know, she likes to go and speak retail park and look at her wallpaper samples and things like that. And if I'm starting to drop behind closed doors games, as well as the under 18s.
It'd begin to sound like you were
just want to get out.
You were either trying to get away from her or having an affair. Because how can she ever check? You can come back, you can say, oh yeah, this happens. And she,
5-0, who knows? Yeah. But that game did happen.
Okay, that game did happen, and one of the things that happens in that game is that Danny Ings scores too, and you know, every time I look up Danny Ings in the under-23s or behind closed door games or whatever, he's banging them in. I think the first thing to point out is the attitude. Really, it's been absolutely phenomenal, I'd say. Yeah,
no, definitely. He's gone down, and it can't be that easy for him. In the first couple of games, he did look like he was a bit kind of frustrated with the whole thing, but he's embraced it, got into it. As you say, he's scoring goals. He scored a hat-trick last week in a 3-0 win. He's played very well. That hat-trick's well worth a look, actually, against Ipswich. They're all really nice finishes, so it's not like, you know, he's playing... It wasn't kind of men against boys stuff, you know. It was just genuinely good finishes, good movements, and, you know, so he's looking kind of sharp, really, and... As you say, the attitude's right, but it also surely becomes the case where he can start saying to the manager, well, what else do you want me to do? You've asked me to play for the under-23s, you've asked me to prove my fitness, to get sharp. Look, I'm absolutely banging them in, and, you know, it just shows kind of his level, really. We're all getting excited about lads like Woodburn and things like that, quite rightly, because he looks like a good player. Well, Danny Ings is scoring hat-tricks at the same level, and so, you know, if you're talking about who's next for the first team, I think it's fair enough that Danny goes, well, look at me.
There's the line of, you know, and I suspect it might be a difficult door to knock on, but there is the line of knocking on the manager's door at this stage. I sort of think if your Ings is to say, I've done everything you've asked of me here, there's some sort of point surely where I at least get to see a first team squad. You know, and not just against Spurs. And I think that's the other thing as well to drop in on this is that Origi hasn't looked good off the bench this season, and I think that's for me, that doesn't mean he's not good enough to start. I'd almost feel more comfortable seeing him start games. There's some players who've always had issues coming off the bench, just as there's some players who've always made terrific substitutes, if you see what I mean. It's something that, you know, some players just simply seem better at than others, and there's been times this season where maybe, you know, to help see games out for Liverpool, the manager may, and I'm asking and answering my own question here, John. I do that sometimes. The one thing I'm reminded of with Origi is when last season the manager brought Benteke on with 10 to go, and they said to him post-match, you brought Christian on there, what were you looking to achieve from him? And the manager all but said, I was looking for him to head corners away. That the opposition were putting in, and I do wonder whether or not maybe the fact that Origi's a couple of inches taller and has got might actually be one of the reasons why when Liverpool he's on the bench to help see Liverpool.
And he's something different as well to kind of what we've got up front, whereas you might think with Danny Ings is that kind of more of the same, and sometimes more of the same with better legs is fine. But other times, you know, you are looking to do something slightly different. Like there was the Tottenham one where he comes on before Sturridge, and people, you know, well, Sturridge looked surprised, didn't he? And people kind of questioned it afterwards, especially because we didn't necessarily get the result we wanted to. But you understand what he's thinking of with Origi because of the channels he runs, because he can hold the ball up, as you say, because he's a big guy, and then you get that the other end as well. So maybe he's just thinking, well, I need variety in my matchday squad, and maybe Danny's just a little kind of similar to some
Firmino / Sturridge a little bit,
in terms of what he's doing. But as you say, Origi, I don't necessarily think Origi's bad from the bench. It just kind of hasn't happened for him this season. I'm not quite sure kind of what's going on with him in terms of, I don't know, he's come on and looked a bit too desperate to score, I think, rather than kind of looking to do a job for the team, and maybe he just kind of wants to get going in the league, and maybe just that just feels like a little bit of pressure on him. But he looks like 2 or 3 games in the 23s wouldn't do him any harm at all. So you wonder whether with Origi and Ings, whether they could just kind of swap places for a couple of weeks, and then you can say to Origi, well, look what Danny Ings has gone down, he's smashed him in, and now, he looks great. You go and do the same, and we'll be all loving you and things like that. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a negative. And Klopp's a good man manager, so I'm sure he can word it in the right way. But it just does to feel on the Danny Ings thing now. If he's not going to kind of get a go now. I mean, there's injuries and things like that where he might get a go, but generally speaking, it does feel one to throw him in, and Manchester United Monday night could be a.
Is this sort of where the way in which he's using Coutinho again as a knock-on effect? If he sees Coutinho as a front 3 player, then obviously Coutinho is going to be in that pecking order ahead of both Origi and Ings, and sort of in and out with Sturridge across the Firmino, Mane, Coutinho, Sturridge. You know what I mean? That it really does feel like any Liverpool team's going to be 3 from that 4. Yeah. Whereas if he begins to view Coutinho as more of a midfield player, and I'll say again, I thought Coutinho's 42nd, 45 against Swansea, he's possibly the best 45 minutes any Liverpool player's put in this season. I thought he was absolutely magic. Won the ball back all over the park, turned away from people, created things. Really felt like he absolutely came alive. You know what I mean? And that sort of that notion that sometimes players just come alive in a situation, and he really did. And I sort of wonder whether or not, if you do decide that you're going to drop Coutinho back in, then maybe that does begin to open the door for 1 or 2 of the other lads.
It would do, yeah.
Might close other people's doors.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, he hasn't shown that much interest in Coutinho in midfield since he's come, which made the sub even more interested that he did that, because he could have done other things. He had midfielders on the bench, but he chose to drop Coutinho back. I agree, he did play very well. I wonder whether he's reluctant to go Coutinho and Lallana. Maybe he thinks that even for an attacking team, that's a kind of a bridge too far, really. He's got Wijnaldum in there who's a little bit of both, you know what I mean? He's a bridge between, a proper central midfielder and an attacking midfielder, really. He can do elements of both, whereas, Lallana's new to the position and is very much the one who's looking to get forward. And whether he thinks, with Jordan Henderson being the holder as well, Coutinho and Lallana in front of him, is that a bit too far at this stage? He might sort of change his mind on, and the performance of Swansea might help him change his mind, but he just might be looking at that and thinking, well, at the moment, people are hammering me because I'm conceding too many goals, and maybe that's just kind of a little bit too much. If Lallana's not fit on Monday, and we obviously all hope he is, if Lallana's not fit on Monday, then it would surprise me to see Coutinho drop back into there and to play a similar role to Lallana's playing, in which case you're probably looking at a front 3 of Firmino, Sturridge and Mane, and then suddenly both things on Origi on the bench don't look ridiculous.
But the other thing as well here is, and I do feel a bit sorry for the manager in this context, because he's also probably conscious that if this season goes as he hopes it will, and he was very cagey when he was playing Crown Green Bowling, because who isn't?
You don't want to give too much away.
You don't want to give too much away, John. Not at that level, you know what I mean? They looked like they knew what they were about, and to be honest with you, I thought a couple of them got in his head. But I wonder whether or not part of the issue around the Ings thing is that if Liverpool are in Europe next season, then, you may well already have a sense, well, I'm going to need 6 of these lads. I'm going to need 6 of them to do the games, and it might be that even then Danny Ings isn't getting as many starts as he might like, but the manager might already be thinking, well, he's the perfect number 6. You know what I mean? He'll do me as the 6th one, the 6 out of 6, and that's where, it is difficult right now, because he's clearly, I mean, firstly, I'd be stunned if Liverpool aren't playing European football 17-18. I would now expect us, I think there's a very good chance, a 75% chance in that, I think, or an 80% chance in that, I think will come anywhere between 1st and 5th, and I'd a lot, 20% on each of those, if you know what I mean. If I was putting my chips around, I'd almost just evenly spread them out. It's usually a gambling metaphor, but if that's the case, then it's probably Champions League football, and he's probably already thinking to himself, I'm going to need a lot of lads to do this and to play at the pace that I'm trying to get them to play at. I'm literally going to need to be able to say, right, there'll be 4 changes, 5 changes from the Wednesday team to the Saturday team. There'll be 4 changes, 5 changes from that side to this one. Then we'll play the League Cup. There'll be 10 changes. Then, do you know what I mean? I really do think already he's probably conscious that, because you look at the ground that we're covering and the intensity that we're playing at. To be able to do that week in, week out, he's going to need all of his boys basically.
Yeah, and he said he doesn't want to buy too many from now on. He said that's his big summer in terms of numbers. Probably did more than he wanted, so you're probably looking at 3 or 4 next summer, 4 maximum in terms of coming in, and that's spread across the squad and the team. And so, he might be thinking, I like what I've got here. I like Danny Ings, Glenn Price from the SPM. I reckon he knocked back 20 million for him in the summer, and he wasn't shy on selling lads in the summer that he's previously seemed to quite like. If thinking of lads like Jordan Ive and Brad Smith, and so. I think if he'd have thought it was right for the club and right for the lad, he would have sold him. He's decided to keep him.
Is that what he's thinking, do you think, almost? I
think quite possibly. I think he's thinking, I like what I've got here. It's just a case of... I think he was probably telling the truth about his fitness in the summer and how ready he was, and I think there's an element of that, and also, thinking long term, and I think that is the way he thinks. He signed a 6-year contract, and I think you see what he's done at other football clubs in terms of length of time. I think he does think long term, and I think as long as he's saying that to Danny, kind of keeping his head up, and maybe that's why his attitude has been so good in the under-23s, because he kind of gets the process.
He understands that we're on this sort of curve, and that's an interesting thing in general with the under-23s. I.e., a lot of people at the minute are saying, when are we going to see Alexander-Arnold? Well, it might just simply be that one of the things the manager's thinking is, you're going to see a lot of them next season, boys. I'm getting them used to what we want down here. We're getting his fitness exactly as close to it as we can get. I wonder if the same thing with Ajaria and Grujic at the minute. They're getting used to what the manager wants, but it's getting them exactly where he needs them to be. And then Ings, and if the manager sort of thinks, well, next season those 4 players I've just named, that's one of the reasons why we're only going to go in the market for 3, because these lads, you're going to see a lot more of them, but we're just sort of layering that in at the moment.
He scored 2 goals for England on the 19s the other day, Trent.
I know.
He's absolutely mustard.
He's too good at football.
He's absolutely mustard.
I can't wait to see him against Spurs. I hope we do get to see him against Spurs, and also get to see Ings against Spurs as well. Listen, the Anfield app. 2 great shows came out over the weekend. There was the John Keith and Tony Barrett chat with Gareth Roberts, which was The Business. If you haven't subscribed, it's worth subscribing for, frankly. Then you can see if you like all the other detritus that we put out. And also What We Call History show with Mike Nevin, Rob Gutman and Ben Johnson, that one was, and that was a belter as well. So they're just sort of sitting there at the minute on the play, and all the other stuff that's on the tour players there. Today be the Anfield app free show, and also there's a big match, which is Liverpool 9, Crystal Palace 0. I'll give it away now. Sean did that one, didn't you, Sean? Yep, you did. So all that sort of sitting there for you on the tour player stuff. But this has been us chatting about Danny Ings. We'll probably do more of that on the Anfield app itself in a bit.